Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics and breaking news time. The government have given their Brexit statement, although while they were doing it, while David Lidington, the cabinet minister, was doing so in the House of Commons, Theresa May still with Juncker carrying out negotiations, although they have now given statements as well. So Theresa May promised changes, concrete changes on the backstop. She said it's not just about explaining certain things. It's not just going to be about extra documents. It's going to be about a material change to the backstop. Is that what has been proposed? No. What has been proposed, this was the statement. Now, we haven't actually seen the new withdrawal agreement yet, although what we have been told is that there isn't any change to the new withdrawal agreement. What there are is, at the moment, what we had was the withdrawal agreement, which hasn't changed one word. There was the political declaration, which was a set of intentions, which is where they said, look, no one really wants the backstop to come into effect, and we certainly don't want it carrying on forever. But that wasn't enough. So there's two further documents. Basically, the most interesting part of these is a legal process for ending the backstop. So this is being billed as something to satisfy particularly the Tory MPs who are not happy about being locked in the backstop forever. And this is what it says. So in the event that the United Kingdom believes that it has carried out its obligations to keep the border in Ireland open, which is what the backstop is all about, nothing else, in that case, we should be allowed to leave it. Now, if the EU disagree with us and they say, no, actually, what you put there isn't going to keep it open, then what the UK does is go to arbitration. That basically means other people decide. And these people would, of course, be outside of the UK. And the suggestion is they would be outside of the EU entirely. Because a couple of MPs did point out, they think, hang on a minute, in the withdrawal agreement itself, it does say that the European Court is the arbiter on all such matters. And David Lidington suggested, no, this would be an international treaty, so it'd go to international arbitration. Now, it doesn't necessarily matter which it would be. The fact of the matter is that the UK would not be allowed to unilaterally leave the backstop. The other thing is, the way this David Lidington was talking about it, there was an assumption in his words that the backstop would come into force. There was never any words like, in the event that we didn't come up with alternative arrangements, which, by the way, they say they already have. And if they already have them, then there is no backstop. Now, I don't know whether that was deliberate or whether that was just clumsy language, because to be fair to him, he would have had to have assembled his speech very quickly, because when he came into the House, it hadn't even been agreed yet. So it was all very live, very ongoing. But the point of the matter is here, all this is about trying to convince MPs who won't know any better that there's something changed. Theresa May is giving statements that the withdrawal agreement has been fundamentally changed. And here's an interesting thing about what she said. She said it prevents the EU locking us into the backstop indefinitely. And think about what those words mean. Those words make an assumption that the only reason we could possibly be held into the backstop is because the evil EU are keeping us there. But that's not the reason why we would be held in the backstop indefinitely. The reason is because we have no other legal means of keeping that border with Ireland open. Now, I know what several people are going to say here. They're going to say, well, if Northern Ireland reunified with the Republic of Ireland, that would make the problem go away. Eventually, yes, it would. And that may indeed happen eventually. But the thing is, for that to be the thing that stops the backstop means the following. So it's going to be a couple of years, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, people from Northern Ireland, before there's another census where people will get to say, in general, whether they'd like to reunify or whether they'd prefer to remain part of the UK. In the event that it looks like there's a decent chance for a majority to say, actually, reunification's, thanks very much, then a referendum will be issued. Well, we know from the Brexit referendum that can take time. And obviously, all these legal processes have to be done by both the Republic of Ireland and the United Kingdom governments. And so referenda have to be issued. That can take half a year. And then, you know, in the event that reunification gets the majority vote, okay, you can't just do it the next day. You've got to remember, Northern Ireland currently has a load of UK laws. So what has to happen is the UK has to basically remove from its statute books Northern Ireland, and the Republic of Ireland has to add to its statute books Northern Ireland for the whole thing to happen. You know, like countries becoming countries like this, you're changing states, you're changing a land's sovereignty. So there's a legal process there. And bearing in mind, we have been trying to surgically remove ourselves from the EU for the past 2 years, and we haven't finished it yet. Now, I'm not saying it would take as long, but you can see that these things can take a while. So you've got to be talking, I mean, in my uneducated view, but just based on, you know, similar things that need doing with regards leaving the EU. 2022 at the very least. And surely 2023 would be more realistic. In which case, I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, the backstop would come into force 2020 because that's when the withdrawal agreement ends at the end of 2020 or the first day of 2021, however you like to think about it. You know, who's going to argue over a day? So we'd be locked in for 2 or 3 years to the backstop. You know, and although you say, oh, there's an end in sight in a few years, because we'd probably know by then that there's going to be a referendum. Is that really solving the problem? And what if Northern Ireland didn't, after all, elect to become part of the... I know a lot of people are assuming one way or the other, but as far as I can tell, it's fairly tight. And maybe it wouldn't. Maybe it would. Who knows? But that's still several years away. But yeah, granted, that would solve it eventually. But it doesn't solve it in the here and now. And MPs want certainty over this. Now, what other things were said about it? So Theresa May, like I said there would be legally binding changes to withdrawal agreement. There aren't. The statement doesn't say there are. And actually, the EU's official statement also makes it explicitly clear there are no changes to withdrawal agreement. Not one word in the withdrawal agreement has been changed. There's just a couple of extra documents been added. But of course, they can't contradict anything. They're just add-ons. They are literally just assurances. It's a legal assurance. But actually, when you think about that assurance, so now to think what the process was, it was actually a little bit aimless. It was the process for the backstop was the UK cannot leave the backstop until we have made arrangements to keep the border with Ireland open. Okay. And we know we don't have any way of doing that, by the way. And so in that particular case, there wasn't really a clear, let's say one side felt that it had been accomplished, another side hadn't. There wasn't really a clear explanation as to how it's going to be sorted. Obviously, we know these sort of things you can always take to arbitration. We don't need a document saying so. But the fact that there is now a document says exactly how it would happen. If the UK decides, right, we need to leave the backstop now, we've got it sorted, and the EU says, no, you haven't, then we'd have to go to arbitration. We can't leave the backstop until that process has been completed. These things are not quick. And, you know, there has to be, at the very least, an international court deciding on that. But it could be a European court. What does that add? We still, that international court is not going to find in our favour if we haven't actually put something in place. And remember, the big issue around the backstop is the people who are making such an issue of it in Parliament know full well, despite what they may say, they know full well we have no way without the reunification of Ireland. That is literally the only thing that solves it. Maybe in the distant future technology will solve it, but it ain't here now. So that's not happening. One thing that alarmed me slightly is when Ian Duncan Smith, another Tory MP, stood up and he basically effectively called for the vote to be pushed back to Wednesday. He said, you know, look, I'm sure we've got lots of questions about it. This is really important. We really need to understand it. Maybe the debate can't all be done on Tuesday. Maybe we, you know, if we run out of time, we should like put it forward to like Wednesday, put it back till Friday, Wednesday. Sorry. That was knocked down. You know, the government, the cabinet minister had to say, look, Theresa May has promised it for Tuesday. It's going to be on Tuesday. But then again, that potentially works in her favour if she really wants the withdrawal agreement to go through. Because there may well be a lot of MPs who are looking at this and thinking, yeah, this solves our problem, without really thinking about it. And then the other thing is this. So, what's going to happen tomorrow? Sometime later tonight, but I mean, bloody hell, it's 10 past 11 at the moment. I'm doing this now rather than waiting for more information to come out because I think I've got what I need, and I've got to go to bed at some point. So basically, they're going to get to look through the detail of it tomorrow. They're then going to have a statement prepared by the Attorney General, Geoffrey Cox. But it seems he's not going to answer questions for Parliament. Now, one Conservative MP did actually stand up and say, well, hang on a minute, this is like him marking his own homework. Geoffrey Cox is going to give his considered legal opinion. And just to make it clear, he is a QC, he is a legal expert, not necessarily in these matters, but he is an established legal mind in his own right. You always get a few MPs that are, you know, experienced legal practitioners. He is one, so he's not an idiot when it comes to legal matters. But he is going to give his legal opinion of the strength of the withdrawal changes, so to speak. They're not really changes, additions, should we say. We'll call them withdrawal agreement additions, appendices, in terms of what it means, and then just give that to Parliament, and then they get to take his word for it or not. And here's the thing. He doesn't have to be right. Just because he says a thing doesn't make it true. The problem with something like this is you never find out how strong it is or what it's worth until it is tested. In other words, it's taken to court where you've got a much more knowledgeable and experienced judge in these matters, with potentially a few judges, presiding over the issue. So he can, you know, so that's what that MP is talking about with him marking his own homework. He can sound very positive about this and say, yes, this delivers exactly what we want it to. This basically means, yes, we can leave the backstop. It'd be no problem getting this arbitration. My considered legal opinion is we'd be in a very strong position indeed. He doesn't have to be right. You know, he doesn't even have to be given his genuine legal opinion on it either. No one's going to call him out on it. If it goes to court in a few years' time, and it's ruled against, he can just say, well, my opinion was it was absolutely fine. I don't know what those judges are playing at. And it can be as simple as that. So what else did they say? So yeah, that's mostly where it is. And then, as I say, later on after MP started asking questions, like I say, Juncker came out with a statement saying nothing has changed at all. We gave you assurances in the political declaration. They weren't good enough for you. So now we've just... It's almost like an explanation for the legal process. Because it's fairly obvious anyway, whenever one country has a legal dispute with another country, or in this case, block of countries, you always go to arbitration. That's how it's dealt with in an international court. So all this does is put that down on paper. So the idea that MPs would look at this and go, oh yes, Theresa May has secured us this. It's like, that was always the process you were going to follow in the first place. If without this document, we, in a few years' time, said, right, we need to leave the backstop. We think we've put something in place. Look, we've put a paint can on the border, right? That'll keep out, you know, undesirables. It's fine. And we've even put a GoPro on top of it to film people. It'd be all right. And the EU says, don't be ridiculous. The solution was always going to be international arbitration, because that's how all of these disputes are always sorted, which is a lengthy process and a matter of legal. This doesn't change how the backstop operates. The backstop is still, if the UK cannot guarantee an open border between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland while Northern Ireland remains within the UK, then Northern Ireland at least is locked into the EU customs union. That is what that document said, still says, hasn't changed. So nothing has changed about this agreement. Nothing has changed about the way we get out of the backstop. Nothing has changed from anyone's point of view anywhere. But it's been billed as a major change. It's been billed as a major change to try and fool the ignorant over the matter. Or maybe not so much the ignorant, maybe some of the MPs who voted against it rather than be seen to be voting for something that might be unpopular. Maybe it's there really just to convince the Brexiteer part of the population, you know, the Brexit supporting part of the population, and say, well, now I can safely vote for it without getting stick from my constituents. Maybe that's all it's about. In which case, who knows, maybe it'll work. But it changes nothing. And MPs Most MPs surely will have to know that. But we will find out tomorrow. It's very likely I'm going to do a video tomorrow on what happens as a result of those votes. Those votes would take place after 7 o'clock p.m. and in the UK, so it'll be later one than usual there. Not as late as this one, hopefully. But anyway, that's what's emerged tonight. That's how I read it. Let me know what you think below as well. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe for further content. Until next time, I'll see you later.